Propaganda is a covert communication method used in leading men to action. There's your definition. It's a covert communication method used in leading men to action. Notice what it says here. Propaganda does not primarily serve to change the opinions of man, but instead to reinforce and intensify his opinions for the purposes of leading men to action. Propaganda seeks action. Propaganda seeks to inspire belief-motivated action. Nazi officials did not believe themselves to be evil, but rather they viewed themselves as being superior. And their belief-motivated actions led to mass murder. Superiority is an easy lever for the propagandist because men want to believe that they are superior to other people. And that's really one of the big reasons why propaganda works. Modern man doesn't understand the real power of propaganda because he believes the average person, if you ask them on the street what propaganda is, they'll say, oh, I can spot it. I know it when I see it. Oh, that's fake news. I can tell you. The reason why propaganda works so well is because modern man cannot detect it. He thinks it's something that it's not. He thinks it's easy to detect. He believes it is composed of tall tales and overt lies. And this attitude leaves him as easy prey for the propagandist. The true aim of propaganda is mobilization. The propagandist expends no energy on raising the political understanding of existing trends and world events. Instead, his goal is to achieve results through action. He wants to influence public opinion for the purpose of mobilization. Napoleon once said, the politics of the future will be the art of mobilizing the masses. And that's what we see today, a sea of people aggregating, combining their efforts, mobilizing. That's what we see the purpose of social media, to mobilize. In fact, political campaigns use what to win elections? They use social media. So social media is a powerful method for the propagandist. He uses it, and what I want you to understand is that propaganda is not something that is foreign to you. It is not something that you disagree with. See, propaganda is leveraged by every form of government. It doesn't matter what government that you're talking about. Communism, socialism, democracy. In fact, democracy is much easier. Some think that propaganda is primarily a tool of Nazis or communists. We talked about this earlier when we said that people think it's very easy to detect propaganda, but they're wrong. It's not easy to detect it because it's subtle. It's not overt. It's covert. We should not be surprised that propaganda is heavily leveraged by democratic governments. And in democracies, propaganda can become the most toxic in its effects. We can look back to Stalinist propaganda, for example. In Stalinist Russia, Stalinist propaganda was in great measure founded upon Pavlov's theory of the conditioned reflex, a simple kind of propaganda that worked very effectively. Nazi propaganda was in great measure founded on Freud's theory of repression and libido. A very different kind of propaganda, but very effective. And then, of course, American propaganda, which is founded in great measure on Lockean liberalism and even Dewey's theory of teaching. Now, propaganda has been going on in the United States since the dawn of our nation.
We must must keep going into the streets, and we must keep demanding our leaders to take real climate action. We must never give up. There's no going back now. But we can still turn this around. People are ready for change. We want change. We demand change. And we are the change.
Climate protesters taking their activism to the street this week, completely blocking traffic on the I-495 beltway in Montgomery County, Maryland, and demanding that President Biden declare a climate emergency. Now, that protest prevented a parolee from getting to work. Watch.
No, I'm about to get locked up for 54 years for my parole if I don't make my job. And y'all are so inconsiderate. 495. Yo. We're live streaming right now on 495. Come on, man. One lane. I'm asking one lane before I go to prison, bro. One lane before
Now, that parolee was arrested after he became agitated and tried to physically remove, allegedly, some of the protesters. Richard, you and I were talking offline. The restrictions that these parolees are under. There is no room for mistakes, inadvertence, being late. We've both seen people return to prison for much less than showing up late to the job. There is honor in him trying to comply with the, at times, draconian restrictions. There is no honor in blocking the freeway and blocking people from getting to work.
No, I believe in the First Amendment protest, but I actually agree with you here. I actually wrote a story about this for Forbes I had a roundtable of returning citizens and really zeroing in on some of the problems they face once they've already sort of done their time. A lot of them face problems with finding housing because nobody wants to give a returning citizen housing because you have to check that I was once a felon. They have hard times finding jobs. And on top of that, many of them, because they have to deal with parole officers, it's really hard. And they face these unsurmountable odds trying to reintegrate to society. And I think, you know, they need a little bit more grace, and the system has no grace to give them.
That's right. The social stigma is absolutely real of being a convict. But Harris, the point remains that here now, we don't know the outcome actually for this gentleman. We know that he was arrested. We don't know whether we know actually he didn't make it to work. We don't know now. He might be facing 54 years. And that other guy remains stalwart. He said, no, until Biden declares an emergency, I will not budge.
So I see this, I won't say differently, but kind of turned on its head a little bit. What if you're in the back of that pack, that traffic pack, and you're having a medical emergency? Like there are a lot of things that could be going on besides one guy that happens to get upset enough to be out in the middle of the intersection trying to move the people because he's got to get to work on restrictions on being paroled. But what about the rest of us? You know, I mean, yes, the First Amendment, yes, you can protest peacefully, but he was right. You got to have a lane. Like, what if an ambulance needed to get through? Are these people just going to sit there and stay the problem? Would the cops then have to move in and move them? I mean, there has to be some common ground on what peaceful protesting looks like. We broke it in May of 2020, right? I don't even think we have any idea now. But we need to get back to it and figure it out.
That's right. And we've gone from the violent of 2020 to the absolutely ridiculous. People gluing themselves to Starbucks counters.
I know, that was gross.
To masters artworks. I mean, the naked bike rides, like the list goes on.
Truckers blocking roads.
Yes, so much. Oh, wait, whoa.
It's because these people it's because they're trying to find religion, right? I mean, you look at every study, people on the left are less religious than the right. So that's what this is about. It's about finding
And they think
religion,
it's in the intersection?
Burning cities down in 2020 in the name of Black Lives Matter, firebombing pregnancy centers in the name of abortion, and then doing this in the name of climate, right? It's about finding religion in the form of activism in politics rather than God.
Other governments get about going green at a time when they're facing brewing sort of political crises at home over really skyrocketing prices of non-renewable fuel sources?
We certainly hope not. I mean, I think what COP26 is about is to continue the conversation on the international stage at the leader level, our need to work together to address the climate crisis, one of the greatest national security crises the president sees. A number of other world leaders agree on that front. Certainly, we all want to keep gasoline prices low, but the threat of the crisis, the climate crisis, certainly can't wait any longer.
Thank you.
I would note, as it relates to gas prices here, what we're seeing in some parts of the country is that gasoline prices naturally ticking up, in part in the wake of Hurricane Ida, because the hurricane hit a region that is a key center of the nation's oil production and refining infrastructure. While we're not a member of OPEC, we're also taking a number of steps, and have been, to plan for, protect against rising prices here within the purview of what we have. We are going to continue to use every tool at our disposal, even as we're not a member of OPEC, to ensure we can keep gas prices down for the American public.
The thing that would make people's lives better is lower gas prices, right? I mean, they're rising steadily. What can the president do to keep those down?
Well, we've had a team of our officials from the government in touch. We're not a part of the OPEC negotiations. The OPEC discussions, which are ongoing, will have a big factor on the price of oil, which has a factor on our gas prices here at home. And we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep the price of gas low. That's why the president also, a red line for him was no gas taxes for the American people in these infrastructure negotiations. But the OPEC discussions happening on the international level are going to have an impact, and we're engaged in actors who are involved in those discussions as we speak.
Official White House account tweeted yesterday, the cost of a 4th of July cookout is down 16 cents from last year. 16 cents?
There has been a reduction in some of the costs of key components of the 4th of July barbecue. That was what the tweet was noting.
So does the White House think that 16 cents off a barbecue has more of an impact on people's lives than gas being $1 more this time?
I would say if you don't like hot dogs, you may not care of the reduction of costs. You don't have to like hot dogs.
You can't buy a
but
hot dog for 16 cents.
A reduction of. I will say that what we are most focused on is the fact that we've created now more than 3 million jobs since the president took office. That's what we're focused on, and continuing to implement additional components of his economic Build Back Better agenda. Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, just going to switch gears completely.
Great.
A war of words and values in Medford. A sign on the front lawn of a Baptist church isn't sitting well with everyone. As WBZ's Tiffany Chan shows us, it sparked a fierce but spirited and peaceful protest tonight.
Power in the blood! Power in the blood!
A controversial sign sparked dueling protests in Medford Friday, with one side of Salem Street preaching the Bible and the other waving rainbow flags.
This is a message of God's truth and us trying to reveal it to our community.
The sign about gender identity was posted outside of the New England Baptist Church by its pastor, Joseph Hawkins.
We believe that according to the Bible, he created everyone male and female. Created he them.
That message isn't sitting well with those in the non-binary community who don't identify as male or female. They showed up by the dozens in protests, coming face to face with parishioners.
The sign itself just isn't being inclusive. It's not a representation of Medford.
This was largely a peaceful protest, a difference in opinion, but the group across the street waving flags tell us a message like the one this church put out makes them feel afraid, unsafe to be in Medford.
The message encourages other people to act on it, that if you don't belong to either a male or female gender, like somebody like myself who's in between, like if I'm walking down the street, will somebody be following me and then try something?
Pastor Hawkins and those alongside him tell us they're not preaching hate or violence, but God's truth.
It's almost hypocritical that they can present their worldview, but we can't.
While Medford's mayor says it's time to be more accepting of each other.
Love is love, and everybody should have the right to love who and how they want.
Now, a South Florida community outraged over a new law limiting young transgender athletes.
Governor Ron DeSantis signed that controversial bill into law today on the very first day of Pride Month. Local 10's Christian De La Rosa live now in Wilton Manors with the reaction tonight. Christian.
Well, Calvin, Nicole, the governor and his supporters say this measure is all about fairness in sport. But here in Wilton Manors, a largely LGBTQ community, many people are appalled.
Trans lives have always been at the front line.
They originally planned to celebrate their pride, but instead they protested.
It is an outrageous thing that the governor of this state, the third largest state in the country, chose the first day of Pride Month to sign the first anti-LGBT law in Florida in 24 years.
Tuesday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill into law banning students who identify as transgender girls from playing in sports teams in middle and high schools.
Will ensure fairness for women athletes.
Supporters of the measure, like Connecticut student track athlete Selena Soul, say it's about fairness, telling her story about racing against two trans athletes.
In just 3 years, these two athletes won 15 women's championship titles, and they set 17 new individual meet records.
Discrimination is discrimination.
It's a direct attack on our state's most vulnerable youth.
It's a message that told us in our community that we need to fight.
Super conservative Republican legislature who is serving the masters of the same forces that didn't want gay people to adopt in this state and didn't want marriage equality to happen in this state. That is what this is about.
So the Human Rights Campaign and the ACLU have vowed to fight this ban in the courts. In the meantime, Governor DeSantis was asked about the timing of signing this measure into law the first day of Pride Month. He said it had nothing to do with it.
I want to show you another quick sneak peek. This is something that I posted on Twitter a couple days ago. Quick sneak peek from the film, and this relates to everything we talked about really in the opening. It's sort of the logical conclusion of the leftist sexual agenda. What happens when we become unmoored from truth, unmoored from reality, from our moral tradition, and we took the rabbit hole all the way down in the film. So I want to play this clip from What is a Woman, which is available now at whatiswoman.com. Become a subscriber and watch, but here it is, watch.
So now we are seeing kids that are identifying as animals going to school, and they are purring instead of answering questions, and they meow, and the teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity.
So you have kids that are going to school and they're saying, I'm a cat. Mm-hmm. And the teachers have to affirm them as a cat.
Yes. So it's
the
not
schools
just
are
the
like
young ones.
literal zoos now, basically.
They are.
I am a 27-year-old transgender woman. I am a Wolftherian and a member of the furry fandom.
When and how did you discover this inner wolfness?
Probably around age 10 or 11. I was watching an anime about wolves and see the wolf running across the screen, and I'm somehow just intrinsically like, oh, that's me.
Have you spent any time around biological wolves?
Yes.
That sounds dangerous also. What context are you?
So I was a volunteer with a preserve, and I've also visited many wolf preserves.
Are you able to communicate with the wolves?
Am I going to have a conversation with a wolf in the way that I'm communicating you and I? Obviously not. Am I going to read their body language, respond appropriately to their behaviors and their nonverbal cues? Yes.
Would you be able to give us an example of this wolf communication?
No. I'm not comfortable doing so.
Okay, all right. I mean, I thought I'd ask anyway. I would be interested to know. I mean, I still would like to know what really what the interpersonal communication between a wolf is like. And you see that and you think, well, that's absurd, and you can kind of laugh about it. And sure, but I'm telling you right now, this is not any kind of extreme slippery slope possibility. I think that a few years from now, that someone, I don't know if it's going to be me, but someone's going to have to make a film called What is a Human? Because this trans species stuff, this is not just a fringe fad, outlier type of thing. This, as we heard from Sarah Stockton, who's the therapist in the first part of that clip, this is a very common thing.
Let me get to this issue that has bothered me and bothered many other people. And that is in the piece that I referred to that you wrote for a publication called Resurgent. You wrote, Muslims do not simply have a deficient theology. They do not know God because they have rejected Jesus Christ, his son, and they stand condemned.
No! Where did this guy come up with that kooky idea? Oh yeah, that's what we've taught for 2,000 years. Please note, this fellow who's up for the OMB position didn't say, I hate Muslims, I think they need to be kicked out of the country, they need to be exterminated from the planet. No. I believe that Jesus Christ is the only way to God. Muslims don't. Therefore, they don't have a way to God. Therefore, they stand condemned. You know, like Jesus actually taught.
End of quote. Do you believe that that statement is Islamophobic?
Absolutely not, Senator. I'm a Christian, and I believe in a Christian set of principles based on my faith.
Oh, how dare he. I wonder if anybody would ask Bernie Sanders the question. So, Bernie, you think that Republican views are wrong. Are you Republican phobic? I mean, it's bonkers. It's just bonkers, but there is an explanation for it.
That post, as I stated in the questionnaire to this committee, was to defend my alma mater, Wheaton College, a Christian school that has a statement of faith that includes the centrality of Jesus Christ for salvation. And
again, I apologize. Forgive me. We just don't have a lot of time. Do you believe that people in the Muslim religion stand condemned? Is that your view?
Again, Senator, I'm a Christian, and I wrote that piece.
Well, what does that say?
With the statement of faith of Wheaton.
I understand that. I don't know how many Muslims there are in America. I really don't know. Probably a couple of million. Are you suggesting that all of those people stand condemned? What about Jews? They stand condemned too?
By the way, Bernie Sanders was clearly agitated. You remember the nice guy. Would
it be rude to say just yes?
Yeah, well, it's just so not politically correct that if he did say just yes, the fireworks would intensify and this party would be over. It gets quite heated.
Senator, I'm a Christian.
I understand you are a Christian, but this country is made up of people who are not just. I understand that Christianity is the majority religion.
Please note, in our country, when it comes to public office, we do not have a test of religion. Sounds to me like Bernie Sanders is giving him a test of his religion.
But there are other people who have different religions in this country and around the world. In your judgment, do you think that people who are not Christians are going to be condemned?
Thank you for probing on that question. As a Christian, I believe that all individuals are made in the image of God and are worthy of dignity and respect regardless of their religious beliefs. I believe that as a Christian, that's how I should treat all individuals.
And do you think your statement that you put into that publication, they do not know God because they've rejected Jesus Christ the Son and they stand condemned, do you think that's respectful of other religions?
Senator, I wrote a post based on being a Christian and attending a Christian school that has a statement of faith that speaks clearly with regard to the centrality of Jesus Christ and salvation.
Well done, I would simply say, Mr. Chairman, that this nominee is really not someone who is what this country is supposed to be about.
Wow.
I will vote no.
Wow. Based on his religion.
Hi, this is Pastor David. I'm listening to this lady that claims that Christianity is a white supremacist religion. Let me look at it.
Just a reminder that Christianity is a white supremacist cult and that your sincerely held beliefs are actually a mental illness caused by generational abuse. The church has never had the moral high ground as they essayed, burned, and pillaged their way through history and currently function as a real estate hoarding tax shelter that protects pedophiles.
Okay, for the record, anybody that's holding a little petite microphone that's pink, talking like they're on drugs or in a mental asylum, I think that person has the mental illness.
Your sincerely held beliefs are actually a mental illness.
I mean, what is a person doing with a little microphone here? Maybe they're trying to say a point. Why are they talking so fast? So I had to kind of listen to it a few times just to kind of get the gist of what she's trying to say. And apparently this has become like some kind of mantra that a lot of people are listening to online.
Just a reminder that Christianity is a white supremacist cult and that your sincerely held beliefs are actually a mental illness caused by generational abuse.
So let me break it down. First and foremost, Christianity is not a white supremacist cult. The people that founded Christianity were Hebrews. They were not white.
What did he say?
And if I'm assuming that when you say white, you're looking at people like yourself. And I don't know why the self-hate. You're white. Christianity was not started by Europeans, which is where the white people come from, the Japhethites. They're coming from the Hebrew race, which is Shemites, and they happen to live right beside Egypt in that area that we know as the Middle East. In fact, the Jews, the Hebrews, lived in Africa for 400 years as well. Jesus lived in Africa for a very large period of time, where the sun is boiling, where your skin is going to have to be of a tanned kind of way. So Christianity, the Bible, is not anything to do with European. When I say has nothing to do, there are times when people are preached to that are from the European race, but the Hebrews are not European. So it's not a white supremacist cult.
Just a reminder that Christianity is a white supremacist cult and that your sincerely held beliefs are actually a mental illness caused by generational abuse.
The teachings of Christianity is nothing to do with supporting or any mental illness, and it's not causing any generational abuse. In fact, the Bible speaks against abuse, and it also casts out the demons that bring mental illness. The Bible says he has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. If you look back in history, it was Christians that brought about the educational institutions, that brought a lot of peace and love to all the nations. I wonder what the world would look like without Christianity. It's brought a lot of good into the world. In fact, even till this day, most people leave their war-torn countries or their other religious countries to come to Christian lands because there is a sense of freedom and an opportunity in Christian lands. A second thing is, you said that the church burned and pillaged their way through history.
The church has never had the moral high ground as they essayed, burned, and pillaged their way through history.
There was some things that happened in history that people in church circles did do, just like there were atheists, Mao and Stalin, that did some atrocious things under the name of atheism. In fact, if you do par for par, all throughout history, the Islamic conquest, the atheist conquest, the animistic conquest, the African conquest, the Native Indian conquest, none of those had to do with Christianity, and there was pillaging, there was slavery in every culture, including India, China, everywhere. So it has nothing to do with Christianity. In fact, Christianity actually brought more civilization, more moral ground to the rest of the world.
The church has never had the moral high ground as they essayed, burned, and pillaged their way through history and currently function as a real estate hoarding tax shelter that protects pedophiles.
In regards to real estate, tax sheltering, so forth along that lines, I mean, churches are not the only charities in the United States of America. There are charities in almost every group, every religion, even atheistic, non-religious things that have buildings, that have tax breaks, tax shelters. So this is not something unique to religious things. But when it comes to pedophiles, I mean, all you need to do is turn on TV today and you see drag queens going into libraries and into schools trying to target little kids. And this is endorsed by the LGBT community. Actually, one of the letters in LGBT is trans, and all the other letters would include drag somewhere along the line. And it's supported by the government.
Let me ask you a question. What is it about Jesus that some of you do not like? What is it about Jesus that you don't like? I'd like somebody to tell me, somebody who doesn't believe in him. Well, just tell me, what is it about him you don't like? What did he do wrong? Zero. What is it about God you don't like? Well, if you have a false impression of who he is, then you may come up with something. But the God of the Bible, what is it about him you don't like? This is the eternal Word of God. God loved you and me enough to come in human flesh and walk among us to reveal to us who he is and what he's like. So let's think about, for example, who he is. God is the creator. He's the sovereign ruler of the universe, and he's the judge of all mankind. When you think about what his attributes are, for example, he's a God of, shall we say, he's the eternal God. He is holy. He is just. He's omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. He's God of mercy, faithfulness, and love. Now, what is it about God you don't like? What is it about God you change? The only people who would change anything about God are people who are living in sin and don't like God's viewpoint of their sin. Because think about this. You mean if he's a God of love and goodness and mercy and kindness, and he's a God of justice, you don't want justice in your life? In other words, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, all these and many more attributes, unchanging. What is it about God you don't like? Or what is it about his word you don't like? What is it about Jesus you don't like? You see, how foolish to insist that the Bible is full of errors when God is holy. Listen, God could not be holy and give me a guidebook full of errors to mislead me.